Good day, flight simmers. Today we're going to try a flight with the Pipistrel Virus, and we're going to fly in the Toronto area from Buttonville Airport to Toronto Lester B. Pearson International. There's our aircraft. I've created a flight plan in Little Nav Map. That was what it looks like. Basically just right click on here to select that airport, and then I selected runway 33, and then I went over and selected Toronto Lester B. Pearson and runway 24 right, which has an ILS approach 109.30 megahertz. So that's what we're going to try. We're going to try this aircraft and see how it works. And I'm going to try it with Little Nav Map running. So let's go back to here, and that flight plan was saved. So I'm going to click load save and load from this PC, and there's the flight plan that I saved, exported it actually as a Microsoft flight plan into Microsoft Flight Sim, and now open it. And there's the flight plan. So it's a pretty short flight, and you know, it doesn't look like exactly what I asked for, but let's see what happens. The chances of creating a flight plan in Little Nav Map, picking your runways, and then actually loading them into your Microsoft Flight Sim nav system in the aircraft, and getting that departure from ATC to be the correct runway, I find is not that common. So let's just get this thing started. I'm going to use the checklist that comes with it, and let's do an evaluation so we can find these things. There's your parking brake.
Fuel selector.
That's set.
Full S tank. Master switch. On. Avionics master switch. On. Nav and strobe lights. On.
I'll turn that cabin mode on. Choke. There we go.
On. Throttle.
1 centimeter.
NASAir 616 cleared to Toronto Airport is filed. Climb and maintain 4,000 feet. Departure is 133 decimal for squawk 2564. Clearance void 30 minutes from now.
Okay.
NASAir 616 readback is correct. Good day.
So let's do evaluation.
Magnetos. Both. Start. Turnkey. Throttle.
Now I'm going to autocomplete the throttle.
Maintain 2,500 RPM or below.
So it's just a
Oil
matter
pressure.
of getting your RPMs
Check.
up. And the oil pressure looks good. Okay, so that's it for the checklist to get this thing started. I'm going to press Control 1 on my keyboard and hit enter, hit OK, and I'm going to hit enter again. It's acquiring. So this is our Garmin system here, and remember we said our frequency for runway 24 was 109.30, so that's already been entered, but it's a standby frequency here. So there's the flight plan it's showing us. Whether we can get it to follow that is another thing. I'm going to activate by swapping. So that's the active frequency now. And you can look at your flight plan by clicking on flight plan. And if you right mouse click there, that'll highlight that. And then you can actually scroll and look at your waypoints. So, you know, it doesn't look too bad. So that waypoint right there is right here. All right, so let's get our altitude set at 4,000 is what I had on our flight plan. So I'm just going to show you quickly here with a little nav map where we are. We should be showing up now. So we're showing up at this parking spot here at the airport. And the reason it's showing up is I have this highlighted, and I also am centering it, the aircraft. So it's showing us showing us taking off from runway 33, which in little nav map. Okay, so we'll leave it at that, and I'll downsize that. And when I click on my window here for Microsoft Flight Sim, this will close this window down. All right, so altitude, I think we said 4,000. Let's just go back here real quick and have a look. If I can bring up the flight plan again. So 4,000, and it's IFR. Okay. So there are our waypoints in the flight plan, and it looked like the ones we had, I believe. Yeah, not necessarily, no. These ones, I don't know if they're going to be there. Okay, so don't always get an agreement when you export. I'll show you how I exported that, by the way. You go to File. Once you create this in a little nav map, you go to File, and then you go to Export Flight Plan as a Microsoft 2020 flight plan, and you hit that, and you say Save. And you say Yes. All right, so just going to downsize that again, go back here, and we'll try and fly. So this is on VOR right now. I had to click on that to change it to altitude. Now when I click here, you see I'm now on GPS, and it's showing me the direction it wants me to fly. Now there's your heading. So here we have heading, nav, autopilot, altitude, vertical speed, up, down, flight director, and your approach button. So if I switch that to heading, on autopilot, nav will go off if I have it on, and also it will follow the heading that I have with the bug here. So right now I've got this heading, and so now I can use this dial to actually move the heading if I highlight that. So now it's on heading mode, and I'm going to turn this to the direction we have to, it's wanting us to fly, and I'll adjust that later if we need to. So we got that. I'll go back to altitude and get this back to 4,000. All right, so standby gauges here for your airspeed and your altitude. Here's your map. You can zoom in and zoom out using these buttons here. And let's take, here's your VSO stall speed, VS1, VFE for your flaps, VA, VNO, there's the VNE. You don't want to exceed that speed with this aircraft. Here's your knot speeds for your flaps at 2, 1, 0, and there's a negative setting if you're doing more than 100 kilometers. Barometric pressure, you can use that to set it, or you can just press B, or you can click on here and rotate this knob if you highlight barrel. So I'm just going to hit B on my keyboard and nothing changed, but if I change the barometric pressure, you can see what's happening here. It's changing the setting, but if I hit B again, it'll change it back to what it was and give me the proper altitude. Okay, so Control 1, Control 2. So there's our propeller setting, and there's our engine choke. Engine choke is on. Yeah, so we don't want that on. We want it off now because we've got this thing started, I believe. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the fuel selector. And there's your trim. And there is your flaps. Okay, let's do after starting engine.
Choke.
Off.
Off. Parking brake.
Release.
Release.
Okay. So that's it for the checklist. We should be good to go. I'm just going to announce taxi.
Buttonville traffic Nasser 616 is taxiing to runway tree.
So I'm not sure where runway 33 is. Let's just bring up a little nav map and see if we can find out. So we'll close that down. So it's down here. So we would go out here and down. So let's downsize that. So this little aircraft, the Pipistrel Virus, is a two-seat single-engine light aircraft manufactured by Pipistrel in Slovenia and Italy and sold as an ultralight. You can get it as a home-built kit or a light sport aircraft. It was introduced in 1999 based on the design of the Pipistrel Sinus and Virus. It's been produced in a number of variants with different engines, wingspans, and undercarriage configurations. It can be equipped with a full airframe emergency recovery parachute system, sort of like the Cirrus SR-22. So it's, let's take a look at it before we take off, get a good look at the plane. It's a high-wing cantilever monoplane of pod and boom configuration, and you can see with a T-tail, and it also has the air brakes, which we already showed, spoilers that you can see coming up and down there. The cabin has two seats side by side, but it's a tight squeeze there, as you can see. These guys don't have a lot of shoulder room here. Its fixed undercarriage can be provided either in the tricycle or tail wing configuration. And here we have the tricycle configuration, which I do prefer because when you brake this thing, it doesn't nosedive and plant the propeller into the runway. So it comes in a long wing version or a short wing version with the Rotax 912 engine or the 914. So it's a really interesting little plane. It you know, has a pretty good safety record, and it's very popular, and actually has some very good certification standards. In April of 2016, the Virus SW121, which we are looking at here, received its EASA full type certificate. So the SW121 is powered by the Rotax 912 S3, and it's designed to meet EASA requirements for light sports aeroplane. It is the first EASA type certified no restrictions category normal aircraft in CSLSA category for night VFR operations, intentional spins, and even for glider towing. It features an autopilot, which we're going to use, and dual redundant ADARS units and air brakes. So this plane actually did an around the world flight in January of 2012. A Slovenian pilot, Matevez Lernerich, launched an around the world flight attempt from Slovenia in a turbocharged Virus SW214, and it was sponsored by Greenlight World Flight And he did actually fly right over Mount Everest. He cleared it by 90 meters, so he was 8,944 meters up. Actually, Nepal had canceled his permit right after, or right before he took off, but he went anyway and completed the flight without a co-pilot. And he flew 100,000 kilometers or 62,000 miles during his journey. So quite the airplane. Now inside, if we look at this little dial here, we can see we have nice weather today. So you can see that the aircraft is approved to fly in visual meteorological conditions. So VMC only, and flight instrument meteorological conditions. IMC is prohibited. So even though it has navigational system here, a Garmin, and can fly GPS, it is not rated for that in bad weather. So there's all your V settings and your flap settings. You can look at that for reference. So we're ready to take off. So let's see what happens here. Get behind this thing.
Buttonville traffic Nasser 616 taking off runway 33 south departure.
So you can see our GPS is pointing in the opposite direction, so we're going to have to deal with that. Okay, so we're ready to go. I'm going to put some flaps down. Alright, let's get behind this aircraft and inside as well. And so let's get ready to roll. So this thing should take off at around, anytime over, 60, 70 knots. It'll pretty much lift right off, but I'm just going to rotate shortly. There we go. Lift off, climb gently, get a good rate of climb. Then I can bring up my flaps. They're at 9% right now, so I'm just going to bring them up right now. I'm going to go inside the aircraft and I'm going to turn on the autopilot, the nav, vertical speed up. Okay, I'm going to see if this thing is going to turn around and follow the GPS needle.
Departure Nasser
Now I want to check here.
passing 1,200 feet, climbing 4,000 feet.
So I don't want to be going 1,700 feet per minute. That's way too much. Single stall. So I got it set to 700. So you can see we're flying in the wrong direction here. So what I'm going to do is go to heading. See the heading there? So now I'm going to switch to heading, and nav should be off. Heading should be
Maintain
on.
present heading and altitude. Expect ILS runway 24 right approach via Pigma transition cleared to Pigma Nasser 616.
Cleared to Pigma. So I'm going to see if I can get this back on GPS, following the GPS route. We'll see what happens here. I'll play around with the heading bug here till I get things right. Just go outside and see what's happening. So the plane really does fly well. So it's lined right up now. It's heading back towards that, and it's chasing the needle here. See how we make out. What I want to see is if it picks up this, will it all of a sudden go after this waypoint here that it's supposed to. I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't turned it around, because it was just flying off in the wrong direction. That's because when everything was imported, it didn't jive perfectly with what we wanted to do.
Climb and maintain 3,000 feet.
They want us to
Climb and
climb.
maintain 3,000 feet Nasser 616.
Okay. So now I'm going to try and hit fly direct to this waypoint here. I'm going to hit direct to, and I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to hit enter again to activate. And I'm hoping it's going to fly to that waypoint and turn. So it didn't do that. So I'm going to try the next one.
Porter 2940.
Direct to.
Not above 210 knots.
Enter. Activate. So it's missing these waypoints. So I'm going to turn the, well, now this just lit up, but I'm not sure it's going to follow it. I'll have to hit nav. See what happens. Okay, it looks like the airplane's turning around to follow it now. I had it on heading and I didn't switch back to nav. So let's see if it swings back and goes after this. Or if it just goes after the, let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure where it's going to go here. If I, just to play around with it a bit, let's just see what happens if I go back here. See if we can get it to go after that waypoint. Okay, that looks a little better for our approach. I'm hoping now it's going to follow this line in once it gets here. Okay, let's go outside and have a look at what's happening with the aircraft here. We're getting close to 4,000 feet. It looks like it's following the GPS flight plan now, at least. So let's see where it's going here. It'll be interesting to see if it turns around and goes back now. It looks like it is. So we got the thing following the GPS route. The problem is started when we took off from in the wrong direction from the flight plan we created. And what was loaded into the system. So we are doing 120, which is not bad, but I'm going to give it a negative flaps. Show you what's going to happen here when I hit. Okay, see they tipped up a bit. And that'll actually improve the airflow of the wing, and actually the plane starts flying faster when you do that. So I'll just do that temporarily until we get in the right spot here. See if we can see how far away we are from the airport. Okay, we got a little ways to go here. So we picked up the flight plan, which is really good. We had so they, you know, the GPS and nav system does work good, and we've got the right frequency entered here. So try not to get into this yellow area. It's more like a cautionary for your speed. What we're doing right now is pretty good. So the heading bug, I can turn that if I want to, just in case I need to use it.
Porter 2940. You are 5 miles southeast.
Let's just in case we need to stay on track, I'll just put it here anyway. We're pretty much lined up with the runway here. We're going to have to descend to 3,000 here. I'm going to check the barometric pressure. So it just changed. Barometric pressure just changed when I hit BM. Keep it. So we got to start going down here.
Tower 61 is 612 miles northeast inbound ILS runway 24 right approach.
Porter 207 line up and wait.
So I'm going to descend.
Tower. Altimeter 29.996, wind 237 at 5. Cleared ILS runway 24 right approach.
Yeah, we're going to have to get down to 3,000
China
here.
Eastern 207 contact approach on 124.47.
And I'm going to have to watch my speed.
Tower Nasser
Picked up the
61 inbound
localizer.
ILS runway 24 right approach.
Air Transat 905 for contact departure on 128.8. Good day. Nasser 616 Tower. Altimeter 29.996, wind 237
So
at
that's
5.
okay.
Cleared ILS runway 24 right approach.
Cleared ILS runway
So
24
we're
right approach
above
Nasser
the
616.
glide slope right now. We have to get down. See that little green diamond there?
128.8 Air Transat 954.
So I'm watching my airspeed here.
For China Eastern 207.
Okay. So we're now right about the right elevation.
Quarter 207.
So now I'm going to hit approach.
29.996, wind 237 at 5.
See if we pick up the glide slope and start descending. Okay, a little hazy here today.
83, wind 237 at 5. Caution the generic landing runway 24 left. Clear to land runway 24 right.
Okay, we're descending, so I now have to get the flaps
Clear to land
out of
runway
negative
24 right,
and
Air
give a
Transat
little plus
283.
flaps there for landing. And we're doing 80 knots, so we should be okay for setting 1. So I just did that with my
Clear for
joystick.
takeoff runway 23 quarter 207.
Okay, so if we take a look right there, this will adjust your propellers if you
Quarter
want to
207 contact departure
your
on
props.
128.8. Good day.
And let's have a look at
128.8 quarter 207.
speed brakes once again up there. We're going to use those. So we're coming in pretty good here. You can see we have the flaps on one here. So you can do that yourself, or you can use your joystick or your Xbox controller. So we are descending right now, I believe. Yeah. So we're probably going in at about 3 degrees. Does look like it's picked up the glide slope because this is turned green here, this little G. So we're still a little ways out yet. Just watch your speed, you don't get going too slow. It's not bad right in around there, like 60. Between around 80, I guess, 70, 80 knots. Isn't going to be bad for the approach. Okay, so what we can see here is that it's going for this waypoint here. Make sure I got my lights on.
Air Transat 283, turn next taxiway.
You can turn cabin lighting on if you want.
Air Transat 283, contact ground.
So there's the
on
waypoint
121.9.
right there that we're heading to.
WestJet
And we are still
700,
descending.
follow the generic on final.
And that little diamond, if it's right in the middle there, you know you're
Clear to
okay.
land runway 23.
Just watch your speed with this aircraft.
Clear to land runway 23.
These are panel
WestJet
lights if you want to
700.
turn them on. Okay,
121.9 Air Transat
everything's looking
283.
good here. And you can see that Microsoft Flight Sim not only has done a great job rendering this aircraft in realistic terms, beautifully done, but also the city of Toronto down below. You can see the buildings and that highway we're going over right now. That will be Let me just get this over here.
616 wind 230 at 5. Caution the generic landing runway 24 left.
That is Western Road down there, and that it would be the 401, the mighty 401
Clear
running
to land
through
runway 24 right,
Toronto.
Miss Air 616.
Okay, when I click on here, the little nav map will disappear. We'll bring that up again. So here's our runways up here. So we're doing good. Yeah, with a little nav map again. If I zoom out, you can see this is Highway 400. That we're flying over right now with an interchange there. Yeah, and there's the 401 collector lanes. And you can see the wind is blowing at 9 knots right into us, more or less. So that's good for landing. Yeah, it's coming in this direction, a little bit of a crosswind. That's why there's a little bit of correction being done by the autopilot. Okay, I'm going to get back to here and take a look at what it looks like inside for the landing. Wow, it's looking really good. Yeah, yes indeed. Yeah, the glide slope is taking us right in beautiful. You can put down more flaps if you want. I mean, once you get your speed down, but I think you have to be down to, let's see. Yeah, you got to be down 45 to 65 to get double +2 on flaps. I won't need it. So I'm just watching my speed. Coming in here very nicely. Once we get on the ground, I'll bring up the little nav map again so we can find our way around the airport. So, I'm going to take it off autopilot when I get a little closer. Everything's working fine. So you actually could leave this thing right on autopilot. I'm going to check the barometric pressure again just to make sure everything's set properly. But we're at 800 feet. So right about now, I'm just going to take the autopilot off and just land it manually. So you just heard it go off there. So I'm just going to watch my airspeed and gently bring her down, and then I'm going to put on the spoilers. I'm just going to let you see what it looks like. I'm going to a little correction here. Okay, so we got a nice long runway, just bringing this thing down nice and gentle, and then you can put your spoilers on. And you can brake a little bit.
616, turn next taxiway.
Okay, next taxiway happens to be right here. So those little blue arrows came up because I have that turned on in my settings. So just put your spoilers down, bring up your flaps. And just pull up here and we'll stop.
616, contact ground on 119.1.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up the little nav map.
For Nasser 616.
Okay, zoom in a bit. I'm going to see if I can see what gate they give me. So now I have to tune ground. Request taxi to the
Toronto
gates.
ground Nasser 616 taxi to the gate.
Nasser 616 taxi to gate 9 or 8. The attack
Gate 9 or 8. Okay, so let's have a look and see if we can find gate 9 or 8.
Taxiing to gate 9 or 8 using taxiway Charlie Tree
Over
Charlie
here.
Delta 5 Delta Tango Nasser 616.
Right there. So that's where we're headed. So that's what one of the things I really like about little nav map. So we're going to follow these blue markers, and you can see where we're going here. It'll center us as we're going. All right, let's go.
Taxiing to gate 17 via taxiway Delta cross runway 06 left Delta cross runway 33 right Victor Bravo Tango Alpha Alpha Juliet SkyWest 3702. Taxi to gate 20 via taxiway Juliet 2 Juliet cross runway 15 right Juliet Papa cross
Okay.
runway 23 Hotel
Please
3
get out of the
Echo
way,
November
buddy.
cross runway 33 right November Bravo Alpha Foxtrot
Oh,
Alpha
I
Alpha
don't want to
Tango.
hit you with my prop. Beautiful day here in Toronto. Nice weather. So we had good weather for this test flight on this
Taxiing to gate
vehicle.
20 using taxiway Juliet 2 Juliet cross
So
runway
I'm
15
just
right
about
Juliet
there.
Alpha cross runway 23 Hotel 3
So
Echo
basically
November
what
cross runway
happens here
33
is
right
these,
November
this
Bravo
blue box
Alpha
will turn
Foxtrot
yellow
Alpha Tango WestJet
or green, I
700.
guess, more like a greenish yellow color. And then it'll actually disappear when you get in exactly the right spot. So I'm not going to go any further because I'll hit that big tug. So we're sitting right on gate 9 or 8, so that's good. So we can shut this thing down. If we go back to our checklist here, I'm just going to put my parking brakes on. Go to the checklist, and before you start the engine, what do they say? Parking brake set, avionics, choke, etc. So you can look, if you want to look where your master switch is, it's right there. There's your avionics. Fuel, we could shut off our fuel. And that should shut off the engines. And then starting engines, magnetos. Let's just take a look at that. There. And throttles, oil pressure. That pretty much shut things down, I think. This light's still on, but let's have a look outside. Yeah. There we go. All right. So, thank you very much for joining me on this flight. Parking brake is on. The choke should be off. Let's have a look here. Okay. Catch you next time, Flight Simmers. Hope you enjoyed this little demo flight with the very interesting aircraft that we used today on this flight. Pipistrel. And there we go. Give you another look at it. And the people inside here, the pilot and co-pilot. So, Virus SW121. Type certified. Beautiful aircraft. Beautifully rendered. And a lot of fun to fly. Goodbye. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me.